Hi there, Randy Green here. Let us finish the sum up of my talk on Buddhism. And I was beginning to go into dharmatalks.org, which is something at some point, if I want to find it's still interesting how this synergy has worked, because technically I was working with it yesterday when I was doing this whole kind of sexual things, and I was talking about my visions and how I remember. And it's always been very clear to me that if you really want to do the path and you go from the outer reality into the inner realities, there are consequences with merging your field with another living being, whether it is through when you talk or when you look at them, or if you are emotionally involved with them, or you mentally share your fields, or you go into the sexual, physical merge that is on all levels of your existence. So there are huge ramifications with random sex, which is, we could say, is kind of not wrongful or misconduct, sexual activity. Sorry, I'm thinking something and then I'm trying to explain something which is not going very well. But we're talking about three right conduct or action that goes with no sexual misconduct. And I always know that's a vague translation of something that's much, much more sharp. Because on the return path, there's no sexual intercourse. There is no sexual intercourse. And that's just how it is. Because who will be on that? And this is not to diminish anybody else, or to say, well, you are so distorted, I can't be with you. Well, what it technically is, but it is the correct understanding of how to work with energy correctly. Similarly, let me do a very bullshit example, but it kind of says things. When you're young, you're fine with going out and getting drunk and completely lose it, and you won't really have large hangovers, right? But when you get older, or if you become a parent, it's just not worth it. If you become a parent, you're kind of, I would love to go out. And this is part of the transition between being a young one and then becoming a parent and take that responsibility. You still want to have portions of your life what you used to be able to do before you become a parent, right? But now you got that little one that's looking at you with his gorgeous blue eyes and want mommy, 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 or daddy, daddy, daddy. And then it's just kind of, they wake up before even the sun sets, right? Or it rises to the sky. And if you've been out having your prime time as a human, and you come home and you have been severely wasted, right? And you are waking up 2 or 3 hours later from a little one that expects you to be around and be the best version of you that you can be, because that's what your kids expect from you every day. They wake up, I'm going to learn today. So they have great expectations to their parents, which unfortunately most of the time they are getting very disappointed, right? Some of the global trauma on our planet that children experience. But then they expect this of you, and you can see it and you feel it. And if you are a responsible parent and you don't get pissed and you yell and you do all sorts of stupid stuff because you know what you've done is wrong and you're kind of ashamed of yourself, and then you respond in different ways. You either latch out or you just take, I rise to the occasion, do what I'm supposed to do. And if you do the latter and you don't try to self-justify your behavior and try to cling on to something that's gone because you've chosen to become a parent, you live up to your responsibility, you will quickly learn, all that whole kind of thing, going out and getting wasted, not anymore. Perhaps only a glass of red wine or white wine or whatever for the sake of being around my friends. But then that's it. I'm home at 12. I need to go to bed because I got a toddler that expects me to be on my game tomorrow. So thank you. I have changed. My life is somewhere different. And many experience in that process that they lose their friends that do not get children, because they're still running around behaving as if they were teens, and if they could just do whatever they want to do. Or even when they get into their 40s, they're still messing around as if they were in their 20s, not really having discovered that their body is now beginning to tell them, hey, you need to change the way you're utilizing the energy of the body because you're no longer 20. Anyway, so that's just to put a kind of a simple example, but it does show the transition between what we used to be capable of doing and what we suddenly can't do anymore because we have chosen to shift direction in life. And that goes, one of the things that I see in the ones that I am, or the ones that are doing my classes and the one I have sessions with, one of the things that I hear again and again and again and again is sexuality, having the whole sexual intercourse. They really want to cling on to that one because it's so important to them, whether it's because the brainwash of society that has been put out that the only way you really fulfill yourself as a human is if you have sexual intercourse, right? Which is, of course, not the case. And the second one is partnerships. The whole kind of, I really would love to have someone to work with, someone to be in love with, someone to do this with. And that's why I try to come up with the progressive partnerships. But they got completely blown to pieces. And I know why, because energetically, it is technically impossible to create correct partnerships inside this reality unless both are working with the same stamina and with the same diligency in this line of work. And it's only possible as long as they're part of the fourth cycle, because the moment they go into the fifth cycle, they will begin to specialize. And unless they specialize within the same faculties, they will no longer be able to work as a team. They will be divided as becoming what we call colleagues that are working parallelly, but they are working on each and one of their own, what we would call timelines that will tear them apart at pieces and bring them back together and create tension and create disharmony. And then it becomes a whole other level of work that is necessary, including once you begin the fifth cycle, you get the polarity forces as well. In the fourth cycle, it's the opposition. There you can always create harmony if you have the right communicative skills, if you have psychological insights, if you know yourself well enough, and if you care enough about the other person. Then you can always create harmony without going into too much of what we could call compromise that will take away your own authenticity, or your authenticity, your own authentic self. Sorry about that. Again, I know a lot of words in my mind. It's not always that they come out right in my tongue. Anyways. So that's the point of this, that when you go into the fifth cycle and you do that specialization, then these encounters becomes very intense and very, very, if they work within the right way, they can lead to enormous potentials of development as you really get initiated, a blast that will push you further in your own work. And then you'll work with the energy that is momentarily created, and you will extract everything you can from it. But once the process is done, most of the times people will then go to each of their own again and then continue with what they have learned. But they will be grateful for what they have experienced and what they have learned. And in the transition between the fourth and the fifth cycle, that is very, very difficult, because we're still using the tools and the understandings and the perceptions of the fourth cycle, but we have not learned yet what it means to be in the fifth. And there will be a lot of crashes and clashes, which is also what humanity will go into. We're already seeing it slowly but surely, that these old institutions are falling apart, and we are having more and more people that choose to live on their own, because it just gives more freedom. And freedom is one of the key words when we talk about the fifth cycle. Freedom to be who we are, freedom to speak our truth, freedom to work with what we find interesting to work with, freedom to live the way we choose to live, etc., etc. But this is where the noble truths come in, and the honorable way of living, because if we use that fifth cycle dynamic and go to the dark polarity, you can figure out what that will mean. We're already seeing it inside our reality. We need someone on the other side that are expressing the light potentials to their highest possible version of what they can be. And one of the things that goes with that is absolutely no sexual activity, because you will link up because of what has been done to the sexual forces. It's not just a reproductive force. It has, it's part of the magnetic field, as well as when things are attracted to each other and join and create some kind of synergy. That's technically what we could say is behind the sexual force. And that has been completely perverted into sexuality as we know of it, including severe levels of perversion that goes on all levels, including porn and everything that's going with that one. It's all perversion. It's all put there as a preventing us from getting into the correct purification processes, where we create synergy out of energy to the highest level by using what we could say is called the sexual forces within ourselves, the magnetic energies that pulls things together, that accrete things, but they draw the oppositions to create harmony and synergy at a higher level. And it has absolutely nothing to do with the fires of the body, because that will always drive it to the ground, which we know that will always keep things being reborn and rebirthed. So that is kind of what keeps people inside the wheel of samsara. And so that's why the whole kind of, when you say no sexual misconduct, you're then opening up for, but if you're within marriage, you can still have, or which you're doing within the institutions of the base program, you can still do it, which is also true on the first level of the path. But when we talk to the monks, then it's something else. And that's what this translation is about, because the blessed one, as it said, is here talking to the monks, and that's for monks. So that means we are now on the second level of this teaching system. So with that, it's interesting also in this translation when we talk about the right view, which is what we call the right intention. So that is knowledge with regard to or in terms of stress. Interesting enough, it's translated into stress, because we have different interpretation of what stress is. So that's a little bit to contemplate on. What do they actually mean by that? Does that mean frustration? Because we do know that when you have things you anticipate and you want to come and it doesn't, you get frustrated. And if you're trying to live up to things you can't live up to, you get stressed. So is that part of what is interpreted in that word? Okay. So anyway, so that's a different, just to put it in that way. So that's something that one could contemplate upon. Is it stress or is it frustration? I would say frustration. For me, it clings more correct with frustration. Okay, so right resolve, and what monks is right resolve, and that is resolve for renunciation. Sorry about that. Resolve for non-ill will, resolve for harmlessness. So this is kind of where we have the other one that is the same as we're seeing it in, it's a combination of actually as we see it in the 10 commandments, where you say no lying, no this, no, you go into the negative, don't do that kind of thing. Whereas when I talk about the way I work, as well as what I want to do in the higher awareness lifestyle on the YouTube, which I want to jump into after doing this and begin that process, I want to put it in the positive way, as a kind of, what speaking the truth. Instead of saying don't lie, I will say speak the truth, because then we can discuss what's the dynamics behind speaking the truth. Instead of not lying, it's kind of closed. It shuts it down. It does not begin a process. But if you say speak the truth, then you go into a process of what is the truth? What does the truth mean to me? What's the truth energetically? What's the ramification of speaking the truth? And onward and so forth. That leads to a progressive process, instead of no lying. That just, goes without saying. If you're an honorable person, you don't lie. But that's it. Then you're done there. But when you say speak the truth, it both implies not to lie, but it also implies the technicalities and difficulties in speech when you begin to work with energy. So that's kind of abstaining from lying, abstaining from divisive speech. Oh, there's a lot of good English words here. Abstaining from harsh speech, abstaining from idle chatter, and so on and forth. So anyway, and then the third one I want to go to, and what monks is right action, abstaining from taking life, abstaining, which is again open. I love that. It's open, because no killing. Yeah, that goes without saying, but taking life, when you begin to work with energy, that opens up a whole other avenue. Abstaining from stealing, abstaining from sexual intercourse. Yaha! Here we have it completely, not sexual misconduct, but abstaining from sexual intercourse. So that's also, when in the notes it says that when analyzing right action, replace abstaining from sexual intercourse with abstaining from sexual misconduct. I'm not so sure, because for me it rings more true. Just go in and go in the deep end and say that's what it is. Because if you want to go to the third level, you stop having sexual intercourse, because you begin to preserve your energies. You know the cost of having sex on your energy system. Similarly, as I used the analogy of going out drinking, you know what the ramifications are of it. And of course you can say, well, I'll slip, I'll do it, I'll do clearing work afterwards. And you can do that. But at some point, you will just discover the price is too high, and you'll just learn. It will just extinguish because you learn by experience that it's simply not worth it. It will push you so far back, and you will collect things that you will just kind of say, yeah, not worth it. That orgasm is not worth the weeks of clearing work I have to go through. I must find other ways to get rid of that sexual energy and drop it to the ground. And these are some of the things I talk with as well with students, because it all depends on who and what they are. But I'm quite simple on that one. It's a biological imperative, and you can do things that are just biologically enough, similar as you go pooping and similar as you go peeing, which are also disgusting in my opinion, but that's how my body works. So I can't really do anything about it. I can try not to, and then I get constipated and I will die, right? So there are also these sexual energies that has their process for males and for females in different ways. And when it arises, it just has to be relieved, but it has to be relieved without involving the mental field, without involving the emotional field, and just do it as a biological pooping. We should not be emotionally engaged when we poop. We're just pooping. We should not be, but we are still mentally engaged also when pooping. And that comes with all of these weird things that are going out there. Oh, it's disgusting, all this kind of thing. You just put in there and say, well, technically it's disgusting, but when I poop, I shut down my brain. I know how I feel about it. I know how I think about it, but I'm just shutting that one down because I'm not going to create a pattern when I poop. So again, this is also an interesting process to go into. What is actually happening when you poop? What is happening when you pee? How do you see about it? That's where Freudian context comes in, right? We know the different stages that can go wrong in our childhood. If we were this whole kind of with little children that likes to look between their legs or like to wank their little whiny there or whatever's going on, what is the response from the parents? That is part of the foundational concepts we have of how we interpret our own body and the processes of the body. And in that also saying, well, technically, in my family, we don't have any what we call physical restraints in that manner. So for me, it's kind of, I lived in a family that's enormously free about everything. So for me, I've kind of gone the other direction, which is interesting. But that is the natural family to put me into that has this. I had seriously obtained an enormous high purity rate. I had gone into this where I had really let go of all physical features. And of course, I was put in a family that was enormously free on all levels of everything. And I was literally buried in flesh in that family, to put it that way. So that's of course to keep that polarity in me and to keep me out of place. And I could not align with that and to contaminate me as well, just to put it as it is. So no harm said about my family. They are what they are. And they are just good, normal human people with all of their positives and negatives, as all good, normal people have. But for a person like me, it felt different. And that has always, they are bananas and I am an apple, and that's just how it is. But that makes it easier later on to depart in peaceful ways because they have seen it. They have known. They try in the beginning, they try to make you be like them, but eventually they just figure out, yeah, it's not going to work, right? So, okay. So that's part of the whole living. I want to talk about these psychological processes there, because that's also some of the things I'm seeing with my students in the sessions I'm having. And I'm not going to in the whole living. I'm not going to go in and do a lot of details. I'm just going which is suitable for YouTube. But there is a lot of things in this process that I have not put into my classes because I chose to focus on the highest level there. These are the sciences that you need when you go on the highest level of everything. But then we kind of have to bridge it into this reality. And that's where I'm seeing this little process with Buddhism as being the bridge for me. And I'm kind of grateful for it because I tried to use the Bailey material, but I quickly slipped into the third level there. But here with Buddhism, because it is still practiced and it is lodged into the collective and it's still a path and it's still a bridge into the collective from the highest levels. And I think that's why the white hats shown me this saying, you can use this path. This is okay for us because you used to be there, and that's why they gave me back what is mine. So I can work on that path, but they also know I'm not joining the path. I'm only working parallelly with it in what's called a concord. So that's part of that one. And I here talk about these white hats are not the councils. They are actual beings because they have had the courtesy to present themselves to me from time to others. And I've seen them earlier on in my life. And I'm pretty sure that they have been part of some of the things that's been going on along with all of the others. So this is, again, one of the games we get into once we begin doing this work on the return path. We'll figure out who are our friends and who are our foes, whether it's in the physical form or in the non-physical form. And that is an expanded psychology lesson that is to be taken when we work with energy. Anyway, so I'm just putting in there with the translations, which should also be, as I talked about, in both with the Gospels as well as with the Hebrew Testament. For instance, when we talk about the letters of Paul that were seen as a teacher for some of the early Christians, there is this debate whether or not we should translate some of his words to be in a specific way. And there's another little hurdle. He was not capable of writing himself, so he had one that wrote for him. So the one that wrote the letters, would he have interpreted in a specific way? Would he have changed the words? But we also know that St. Paul himself was very creative with his Greek language, so he would combine words. And we also know even though he was a Jew, he was brought up within the Greek communities. So we are here having troubles as in kind of, is he using this analogy because he wants to speak to the Greek population, which he chose to be his working area and give Christianity to the Greeks? Has he then chosen, as I'm doing as well, to put it together in a way so that the Greeks would understanding, and in that one, in a way, disrupting the original teachings. So again, it goes in that way, and has his original teachings, because St. Paul had this whole being slammed on the path to Damascus, and I'm here deliberately saying the path to Damascus because is it the physical Damascus or is it an inner Damascus? What Damascus are we talking about? And he saw this holographic vision, and I'm here again saying it that way, of some kind of illusion of Jesus, which is his only encounter with Jesus. And he then got that as in kind of that fear, say, why are you following me? And that was what St. Paul was. He was a zealot. He was righteous in his rabbinic approach towards the Christians as being the completely wrongful way of interpreting Judaism, because this was a fight amongst Jews. Christianity, seeing Joshua or Jesus as the new Messiah, that is the anointed one that was supposed to lead the heavenly realms, including the kingdom on earth, was interpreted as an extension of the lineage of David as we know it from the Gospels, and thereby had the keys to become a king within the physical reality. So it was political, but it was also religious, because if he claimed to be of the lineage of David and had the nobility lineage to claim the kingdom within this reality, and if at the same time he was back to the origin of Noah and the Abrahamic races, then he would also have the keys to the kingdom, and that would be the inner Jerusalem. So he would have the reign both on this earth as well as in the heavens, and that's why they want to do him both half God and half human, so he would sit on both chairs, right? And at the same time, he was either an angel, a son of God, which would tie him up to the tribes of Jacob. Sorry, I have to do that one.